Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ayurvedic Therapist podcast. Here we go. We have another date with my lovely sister, Kelly.
So
Um,
here,
yes,
I love
tea
it.
time. This is just tea time. Although I'm having some beet juice.
I am actually having tea. It's my new liver love. I'm doing nettle tea with lemon balm. So
Oh,
I let it get cool and I add a little lime to it. Lime juice.
amazing.
Not fresh, but
Amazing.
organic lime
Yeah.
juice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had the same idea about cleansing my liver and with beet. Beets are amazing for that. But
Good.
anyways, tea time and juice time with Kelly. So we're just gonna have a conversation around, I think, Kelly, you and I were just talking about what is in our space. And I think as a person who practices Ayurveda and I am now holding space for plant medicine ceremonies, and I have my clients that I work with for like long, long periods of time. And then you being in this healing space and having your clients, we have experienced so much through our yoga studios, and then now coming into the space of you having your clinic and working in osteopathy and seeing people and how they heal.
Sorry.
We can't we can't hear Luna. It
Okay.
cancels it out, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
Um,
Good.
so we were gonna talk about integration and how healing takes time, right?
Yeah, it's a slow burn, and I feel like that point's missed when you think of for the older people in the audience, when you start to come up to some metabolic markers that are cellular changes that are happening. It took time to get to those changes for that certain expression in your health, and it takes time to put yourself back together. I think the kind of the attraction of the like 30-day protocol or 6-week protocol is that the body responds right away, and like in essence you are going to start to feel better. But like any stimulus went on our nervous system and our body, is that there is there's like a cellular capacity in that protocol, and that other systems are at play for when they have to rest and digest and integrate them. And the beauty of doing a protocol to experience what health might, like the possibility of it, because you're just really at your wit's end with your suffering, and then how to progress through the different systems in the body from osteopathic perspective. I think of the body as systems, where I feel like in Ayurveda you can speak to that. It's like the koshas. I don't know. I feel like I
No,
feel like
uh, I
it's
think in
embodied
Ayurveda,
everything already. But
what you, what you just explained reminds me of the seven bodily layers in Ayurveda.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so the seven bodily layer perspective and philosophy is talks about how when whatever our sense organs take in takes goes through all the seven layers. So it goes in. So like food wise, experience wise, the same thing happens, but let's talk about food. Food wise, whatever we take in within 2 hours of digestion is in our plasma of our blood. The plasma of blood takes what it needs and then sends it to the red part of the blood. The red part of the blood takes what it needs to and sends it to the fat tissue. Fat tissue sends it to um, the bones. The bones send it to the bone marrow, and so on. And so there's seven layers to that. And in 30 days, the essence of who you are, or ojas is the essence of who you are. Ojas shows up in the color of our skin and the amount of joy we feel, and how our charisma and how we enter a room and the quality of our prana, tejas, ojas, all of these depend on what we ate 30 days before. And so in my practice, I've come to see that also in the person's mental capacity and mental well-being, and how that same process happens with the experiences that we take in. Yeah, so whatever you're exposed to, that experience is going in, and it's food. Like what you see is food, what you hear is food, what you smell is food. So what are you exposed to? Like what is your environment exposing you to? And what foods are you exposing yourself to? And there's the outcome. We really are like what goes in comes out. And so bringing that back to what you were saying with like, yeah, like 6 week transformation, like, I don't know, weekend of transformation. These are all great spark and light starters, but nothing's going to transform. I mean, you might have little insights,
Mhm.
but we need integration. We need, and that's the one thing I'm seeing now in the especially in the medicine ceremony world, where it's now becoming this big thing and this experience, and people are holding space that have no idea how to do that. And so people come in and they think their life's going to change in like 5 hours, and then they go out, and it's not like that at all. And what your intention is, how you come in, and what you do after is everything. And that preparation and that integration as well. So I wonder um how you see that. Like if you, I know that you have so much knowledge and years of experience and so many different layers of knowledge. And if you people were to work with you,
Mhm.
how would you hold their hand? How would you support them so that the what you would think needs to transform and happen would happen? And what can people do, like, you
Yeah.
know, on a
Well,
daily basis in a busy world where we're all busy?
yeah, I think it really depends on where the person's starting from, because treating people manually from that perspective, sometimes the lifestyle changes don't seem possible because they're in so much pain. So then, if I was going to just go down the rabbit hole with that person who's just in pain, so pain is taxing, it soaks up extra energy in our like can do world. So it would be to physically get them out of pain. And then what's really interesting, what I'm seeing now in my practice, is that movement consolidates the treatment. So it holds it and it allows that in between the treatments for their body to um, keep the treatment going. So what you do in between your treatments becomes important. And depending on the person, how slow or fast that takes shape. You never want someone to be like, okay, I'm going to change my diet, change my life, change. And then, you know, 5, 10, 7, 21 days later, they're like, oh, that was too much. They literally, the expression of their life and what they want, it's too big of a jump. It's like jumping off a cliff. It's like, woo, wow, I feel so good. And then it's like, oh, I can't sustain that. So that's where the personalized experience comes into play, because you can start to titrate what system in the body you would work with and where they need to start. Because when you start something in an accessible, sustainable way, it builds momentum and it naturally ripples into the other systems of the body. And in our complexity and mystery, it's like that. So there is a little bit of trust factor, but I think that the big thing that when I hear in when you were describing that like 30-day was that you change after 30 days. And it's like that little wiggle room you get by doing a 30 protocol, you weave it into an accessible what's 80/20 rule in between. So it's like
Mm.
throughout the year you do things that reset towards your goal or that you want to focus on, whether it's psychologically, physically, diet, sleep, like any of those heavy pillar hitters for lifestyle. And then you see what expresses in the person. So it's a very much like the person has to start to learn how their body works and tune into what the next step would be the most exciting for them. But that perception of like until people experience a little bit of health, they don't know the bet, like you can get lulled into your expression of reality as normal. And then
Mhm.
until you ruffle your feathers and get a little and start, um, you don't see a way out of it. And that's really, we can't solve a problem from how we created it. We need a new perception, a new identity, a new, so that core self-identity work can really drive the behavior. So that
Yeah.
if they're interested, right? Like you can't make someone do, they have to have a goal, and there's a broader range for that, until people are ready. You kind of, our brains need to sit in preparation and simmer of just even the idea of behaving differently, being differently, having a different expression on its health, especially if it's been a long chronic pain journey. Like in within 3 months your brain changes to the pain you're perceiving. And so I use the word perceiving lightly because it's not subjective, but that's our reality, is how we perceive it. And some of the therapies for endometriosis or like the use of drugs, ketamine therapy specifically, to change the brain and change the expression of brain to be able to change your reality, is kind of how I feel like microdosing, or the why that's taking off, is because it's just in order to your brain to forget to influence it to let something new in. It doesn't always have to be the way of drugs, but they sure can be a great benefit in the allopathic world and in the holistic journeys that are starting to take place with really people from that have background to support psychologically. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. So what I hear you say is that, first of all, it depends on the person.
Always right.
I mean, we always say that. People ask me questions. What should a person like this do? And I'm like, it depends. That's the number one answer in Ayurveda, because everyone is so unique and different, and their doshas are different, their quality of their mind is different, their experiences are different, and what they're ready is different, right? So where are we? Where is this person at? And what is the next level for them?
Yeah.
It's a very exciting thing. And to your point with the psychedelic treatment therapies that are now becoming so big, like with in my own experience, like when
Mhm.
I've only worked with psilocybin and some heart opening medicines like flowers, like blue lotus, red lotus, white lotus, and the natural sap of MDMA. And for me, I realized this year what love is. Like,
Mhm.
as a person who went through, grew up in war.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a person who grew up in like being a war child, um, being in survival mode for so many years, and then thinking that I had found, I mean, there has been so much healing, like years and years of healing from that. But when I sat with the medicine, it was like the first time I was like, what? This is love? Like now I see what love is.
Yeah.
It's like I was living somewhere outside of my body. Like, that's what trauma does. So I'm like out here, and now suddenly I am in my body, and I'm like, okay, this is the first time in my life that I feel safe
Yeah.
and I feel love. And so back to your point, it's like, where are we, and from what perspective are we living our lives? Um, and just having an open mind. I think I was just talking to someone about this yesterday because there was an issue with one of the teachers, and like they get so defensive, and it's like when we get defensive, what are we defending? That if we can open our minds and if we can live from a place of actually, do I know what a body without a pain is? Have I forgotten what that is, or how things could be without that pain, or with love in my life? And so that's why the process and the journey becomes so unique to the person and what
Yeah.
they are going through.
Yeah. I really feel like um that's where, when you think of the seven, like the starting point of like what would hold the charge for some to have that. And it's not always, I feel like gut health is, on the rise, but also it's like if you're not mentally digesting life, then how could you physically digest it? But then you come back to the life practices that support gut health. And I guess where I'm trying to go with that is that there's different ways to nourish the body, and you need to start where that nourishing needs to begin, and you kind of don't know what the benefit of what something's going to be. As I get older, I have try it 3 times and see if you like it, like choose your own adventure. um,
Mm.
and that maybe I'm executing more in the realm of recreational activity. Like, what are you doing that's fun? Are you dancing too? Because that's the slice of pie that needs to be filled right now. Is like, where does the joy and fun come in? Because
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
so easy to become focused on. Um, Sometimes it's like the word stress gets a bad rap and the word wellness gets a bad rap when like you don't want to be too neurotic of either. Like,
Hmm.
just for that, how does that healing happen in a digestive way where it feels supportive? And when something happens so early on in life, like we're never not our history, we're just our choices of what we need in the moment. And I think that discovering what that medicine is for you, and it could be like you're exactly like changing jobs. Sometimes you can't shift your mindset to reframe the paradigm, so it causes too much stress out of them. Like drama.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That um I think it's what you're saying is more like uh being kind of in that open mindset of going with the flow of things and not getting too rigid. Anytime
Mhm.
you're getting too rigid about anything, it's like too rigid about my wellness and too rigid about, you know, this and that and all these rules, and sometimes we forget that life is actually in the middle, and it's about the balances, and it's about having fun, and it's about doing the dance. Like life is when the moment you lift your head up and you see the mountain and the sky and you go, wow, that took my breath away, that's the moment. um and that comes with ease and lightness and not becoming too rigid about anything, even if it's a good thing in your
Mhm.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, that trust. So that trust in yourself that you can support yourself with those decisions, but also like how you trust the world, those interplay, like the inside and the outside, the internal and the external environment. And I think that sometimes when you have that jarring to your nervous system, it takes a lot of stacking the deck. You're
Hmm.
like stacking the deck to small actions, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have less tension in my system. I'm more at ease, more bandwidth. But that process, just like change, it's more like you get a little whisper and a reset, but then it's like 6 months to a year integration. And then you're like, oh, I'm at a new baseline. And it's not like you're always moving the goalpost to strive.
Mhm.
That's the product part. It's like the part that you're being present to what you need and you're giving yourself time and space to just focus on that. We're too quick that like, oh, this new supplement or this, new something, the new fill in the blank pill, whatever is gonna um, have that long-term end game that we want with little effort. So it's like the right amount of effort that you can handle with the right amount of time. And you just keep your eye on the ball in a way of like guiding your ship instead of zeroing in on a target.
Yeah, so important. And that's like the concept of titration that you were saying, like just doing little bit. In trauma work, we just say, if all of a sudden like change your trauma from 0 to like 100 healing, then you're gonna freak out. The person's gonna freak out. It's too much too soon, and we use the concept of little bit at a time. We expand, we come back in, and we expand, and we come back in, and we expand. And over time, this expansion happens. Um, and that's the change that will last, and that's what I see with my clients. It's like when I was still working with people on a like a one session basis, it was like I would just give them everything in the first session and be like, okay, take all of this, and they would go and disappear because that's too much too soon, and nobody can change their life that quick, and everyone needs the guidance and the support. And
Mhm,
it wasn't until we started working together little bits at a time, but in a longer format, that I saw huge, huge amounts of transformation in my clients. And so I think the trick is going back to integration.
mhm.
It's like we learn something, but what are we going to do with that? It's like I see people come to Costa Rica and do medicine ceremonies all the time. It's actually not in the medicine, and it's not in what happens that day. It is what you do with it after. It's
Mhm,
how are you going to bring all this information that you've received, all these questions that have been answered, all these images that have been shown to you. How are you going to integrate this now into your daily life? That is the work. And that is the magic of it.
mhm,
And you are the magic, it's not like in the medicine, it's not in the facilitator, it's not in the healing modalities, it's in you. So
mhm,
that's why I think getting to know yourself on like a cellular level, like you were saying, like that's like such a huge step and life-changing step, that you can really get to know who you truly are, so that you can see uh, all these medicines that are being offered to you. How can they assist you? They're only assistants. We're
mhm,
only assistants. You are the healer yourself.
mhm. Yeah, we're our best own inner physician, 100%. Yeah.
Yes, or that.
Yeah. We learn by mirroring, right? So it's like if you think about the people you want to surround yourself to
Mm,
learn from, be mentored, or a learning environment is, you want to we kind of mirror each other. This is a really basic how humans are formed as babies, right? You smile at them, they smile back at you. It's inherent. So it's like, who do you want around you? What practitioners do you want to learn from? I mean, even with my accountant, it's like, okay, you're doing my taxes, but I'm actually here to learn from you. So I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. So I mean, not get my money's worth, but like, so I
yeah.
understand I am hiring you. I'm not just hiring you, but I want to
Mhm.
know things from your life's work. I want to take it with me.
Yes. Yes. So beautiful. Beautifully said.
Mhm.
And so, what do you think, in your wise, knowledgeable opinion, what are some ways that people can start, start where they are? Like, how can they know what they need? Because sometimes we don't know what we need. We're just like so busy
This is
distracting ourselves.
this is a really common question I've had recently. Like, I just tell me where to start, Kelly. I don't know where to start. Where do I start?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to know yourself a little bit in that question, because sometimes people are um it's such a good, because you can't tell someone where to start, but you can give them the framework, understand themselves, and then hey, she's such a brat. So my dog, wait, you can't. Um, so even in its simplicity, it's hard to answer, because I feel like if you look at the pillars, which is like nervous system regulation, if you, I'm going to include nutrition with gut health and hormone health,
Mm-hmm.
um, your sleep. I mean, I think if you feel really stressed out, it's going to come down to start with stress management first, because that kind of is the cornerstone to being able to pause and to choose something for yourself, or to think about the other pillars in life. So I feel like stress management, if your ears perk up on that, it's going to be what manages your stress the best. And that can be either something you learn from a practitioner. I mean, it's kind of interesting when trends come up, like the somatic world, like the word somatic, like
Mm-hmm.
that has been I mean, really, it's nervous system work, and they've branded it somatic. But like anytime you lie down in a yoga class and you start slow movements, that's somatic. Like,
Exactly.
there's no, I mean, I get why marketing exists, bells and whistles, but this is not some new uh this isn't something new, nervous system regulation. And I love when people just, I mean, I'm a diehard nerd, so like with science. So like I like autonomic nervous system, how to regulate your nervous system. Like, and then that has branches of like food, because
Mm-hmm.
neurotransmitters, how are you feeding? And then you can, so any system in the body, you can add any of those layers in. So it's going to be food, mind management, emotional management, sensory bottom up. That's why it's taken off, because when we move the body, it's such a super highway complexity to ground. I mean, in of yoga, why yoga movement was the prep for meditation, because people can't sit still. So they're
Mm-hmm.
anchoring the body in different ways. And I think that's something that where it's doing just a questionnaire with them to see like what area they want to start in. So you really have to know what area feels like, oh, I just really feel this area of my life is so disorganized. But then within, say you choose food, you're going to have breath work, you're going to have all those pillars within that system built in around that one lifestyle behavior, because we're just not separate. Yeah, so that's good. That will be really helpful in whatever part they want to, whatever the starting point is for them. You're going to have a global um, identity and belief system, and then your how are you going to regulate your nervous system, and the think act feel cycle, the things that support whatever change you want to make. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And in my work, we do that by, seeing that our mind and our body have separated at some point of time. That's a very common thing. And I feel like a lot of things in our society encourages that. It's like, look out here. Look at how flashy this thing is. Buy this. You need this. And
Yeah.
so every time our attention and our awareness is going out of our body, we're losing that pranic force. We're losing that
Mm,
um the ojas, right? It's going out of our body. And as long as we're doing that, our bodies are just slaves to the mind moving from this place to that place. So one simple thing I like to say to my clients is that if the mind is really busy and it's suffering, drop down into the body. Do a
Mm-hmm.
yoga class. Bring your awareness into your body. Notice what your body is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, if you look around, people are just going around not even knowing what their bodies are doing. They don't know when they're hungry. They don't know what they just ate. They don't know what they're craving. They just constantly go after the desires without listening.
Mm-hmm.
Just listen to the body, and it will tell you. Has its own intelligence. And if the body is suffering, like you're feeling the pain and you're feeling, you're heavy or lethargic or things like that, bring the attention to the mind and see what the mind is doing in those times, and recreate the connection between your mind and your body. It's like the throat is the highway between the mind and the body, and we're just walking around. These two are separate,
Mm-hmm.
and in Ayurveda, like there are stories of the planet Rahu, and Rahu and Ketu are the north and the south nodes of the universe where there is no light and it's just a shadow. They're the shadow planets. And it's like Rahu going around because it's a planet of a head with no body. So he just keeps eating and eating and eating and taking in and never being satisfied because he
I
doesn't have
feel
a body.
Yeah. I feel like if we were gonna theme that to what a popular antidote to what you described is gonna be dopamine detox pathways. Like how our reward part of it with it weaved in there.
Right.
Yeah, part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, to take the first step to your point is on some level getting to know who you are. And if you want to get to know who you are, you got to come in. You're not out there. You're in here, in your body, in your mind, in your emotions. Don't
I
numb yourself. Like you don't need that next drink, the next cake, the next smoking habit. Like, you don't need all these other things to numb you out. You need to actually
missing
be
the good stuff.
courageous enough to come in and feel.
Yeah.
And once you start feeling, that's when healing happens. That's when you start processing. That's when you start having breakthroughs.
And there's a real nuance there because we can't change what we're not aware of. So if you never stop to cultivate that awareness, but as you were talking, also, I just have this image of like, I mean, maybe, I don't know if this will be vivid for you, but when you are dating someone, like the first date, like, or your first yoga class, your first anything, you're just like listening, your all cylinders are
Mm.
firing, your spidey sense, your relational sense, everything is just like all your senses are just perking up. And it's like, wow, could you imagine just putting yourself in the front mirror and just like getting so excited about yourself and just looking at all the different instead of um oh, we're broken so we got like adding a little bit of that curiosity of like it's there for a reason. Your mind and body don't do anything for no good reason. You just have to figure out, understand what it is, what you need, and yeah, put it back together. And I feel like that's the way. It's like a good recipe. What ingredients are you putting in for to make that, perfect biteful or beautiful bouquet or nice painting, whatever your medium is?
Yeah, I love that. Yes, it's up to you.
Yeah,
And
patient is required. Yeah. And
yeah.
I value that in my friends and in my teachers, that it's an environment to uplift, raise you up. and to move forward.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, our world is coming, I feel, to a place where awareness is number one. And if you want to, there are so many tools around.
Hmm.
And there's a saying in Ayurveda that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so when you're ready, also look out for the signs because the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yes, and you don't have to do this on your own, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I think that was a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Always good to connect.
Yes, and Kelly is a wonderful, talented osteopath, and she has a clinic in Guelph, Ontario. And you're gonna have programs online as well in the near future. So I'm just gonna put all the information below this so people can find you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Paris.
Thank you. Hariom.
Yep.